So now that we've finished all these examples, we're ready to look and come up with some rules. Because like I said, the chips and the number line are there to help us think conceptually about this, but eventually we want to be able to do this without drawing pictures. So when I think about 3 plus 2, and I have my chips here, I noticed that I just added them up, and it was positive 5. So 3 plus 2 is 5. And if I count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So because the signs were the same, they were all positive, that means there's nothing to cancel out. So I can just add them and keep the sign. So I added 3 plus 2 is 5, and they were all positive, so 5 stayed positive. And this next one, negative 3 plus 2, I had the negative 3 chips and the 2 positive chips. Well, on this one, the signs were different. I had the negative 3 and then the positive 2. That meant that I could cancel these out by making 0 pairs. So I canceled out this and this. So when I look at this, I'm left with negative 1. Well, what I really did there was I ended up subtracting. So 3 minus 2 is 1. And then I said, well, the absolute value is bigger of the negative number. There's negative 3, so there's more negative than there are positive. So that means that my answer is going to be negative. So if I did not want to draw the picture, what I could have done is just subtract it. 3 minus 2 is 1, and then looked and said negative 3 has a larger absolute value. There's more negatives, so my answer is negative 1. Same thing on this one. Are these signs the same or different? Well, this is positive 3. This is a negative 2. That means these are going to cancel out. So the signs are different. I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. And keep the sign of the larger absolute value. There were a positive 3. That's more positives than there were negative 2. That's negatives. So that means this is going to be positive 1 since there were more positives. And finally, I have negative 3 minus 2. In this case, these negative 3's and these negative 2's, they're all the same sign. So since these signs are the same, I'm going to add them together and keep the sign. There's nothing to cancel out since they're all negative. So 3 plus 2 is 5. And since they were already negative, they are staying negative 5. Beautiful. So when I look through all of these, my rules from this beginning page, and we want to make sure you have your rules written down somewhere in your notes. If they're the same, you're going to add and keep the sign. If the signs are different, you're going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger absolute value. Yes. If you can't remember the rules, if you forgot the rules for a second, you can always use the chips and the number lines to help you. If you do not know the rules, it's always best to draw one of these to kind of help us. Now there will be negative and positive numbers that have decimals, not just full integers. We're going to look at an example of that. Oh, just kidding, we're not. We'll look at an example of that later.